Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat. We are about going to start the program. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To all honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Angsana Ayuken, scientist at the Halal Science Center, Chulalongkorn University. I will be the MC for today. On behalf of Thailand Halal Assembly Committees, I would like to extend my warm welcome to all of you. In this 10th Halal Science Industry and Business International Conference, or HASIB 2017. We are about going to start our session in technical session 1. The theme of this session is Global Halal Economic Trends in Science, Technology, and Innovation. Now, I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Dr. Tieman, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, LBB International Malaysia. The area of expertise, he is a supply chain analysis, supply chain design, and market research. So now, may I invite Dr. Macro, our keynote speaker, on the stage. Please welcome Dr. Macro.
A very good morning to everybody. I would like to thank, first of all, Chulalongkorn University for inviting me to speak here in Thailand, in Bangkok. It's for me a great honor to speak here. And I'm very impressed also with the progress made in Thailand. Yesterday I was, for example, went to a shopping mall, and then you had a screen and you look for a restaurant, and there was also a button to choose for halal restaurants. So I'm really amazed that you have been able, with all the hard work, to create a system in Thailand, in a non-Muslim country, which is very friendly for Muslims. Congratulations for the hard work. This morning, I would like to give a presentation on some interesting, innovative project we are doing in Malaysia. As you know, I'm based in Malaysia, although I'm not a Malaysian, already for 14 years there. The topic I would like to talk about is on supply chain transformation, blockchain technology in halal supply chain. In particular, I will review a few areas. First of all, halal supply chain management, an emerging industry requirement. Blockchain technology, a high potential for halal supply chain management. A vision of halal blockchains, so how should it look like, how do you envision blockchain technology to be useful for halal supply chains. The halal blockchain project, the project I'm doing together in the University Malaysia Pahang, one of the leading universities on halal supply chain management in the world, and some conclusions to take away with you. Halal supply chain management. Back in 2006, I started with my PhD on halal supply chain management. I was the first academic that time had to do research on halal supply chain management and what is the application of halal for supply chain management. In my research, I discovered that halal is not static because it's going through an evolution from a very basic level of trust, where a Muslim is buying from a Muslim butcher, that Muslim butcher is selling meat to another Muslim, and you trust that meat is halal because the seller is a Muslim, right? So you assume that the product he is selling is halal. If it's not halal, it's not a sin for the buyer, but it's a sin for the seller, that butcher shop that is selling for you. That's a very basic level of transfer of responsibility. Luckily, we have halal certification bodies in the world. In Thailand, CCOT, in Malaysia, JAKIM. We have here our brother from Switzerland who is certifying their products halal. In that case, we have an independent halal certification body. They verify if the ingredients are halal, if the production process is halal, and also if there is a halal certification, a halal assurance system set up, a halal committee set up, that ensures that the product is halal, and there's continuously improvement as well. It's going further. The third phase of the halal evolution is that it was nice, it was halal at the factory, but what matters is for the Muslim when they buy the product at the restaurant or the supermarket where they buy the product. At that stage of the third stage, the halal supply chain, it is important that similar to food safety, which is addressed in each area of each point in the supply chain, also halal is addressed in every point in the supply chain. So similar to food safety, halal requires also a supply chain approach. So you see now that countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia are moving towards stage 3, the halal supply chain, where also halal logistics is being certified and where brand owners are moving towards a supply chain approach towards halal. The fourth phase is the halal value chain. This is still future music, where you also look at Islamic branding and marketing, Islamic banking finance, insurance. Currently there's no takaful solution for trade. There's only takaful solutions for individual insurances. So industry doesn't have a Sharia compliant industry solution for insurance. So these are still things which are required in the coming years. So the industry is moving to stage 3, the halal supply chain. The evolution of halal, you can also relate this to the maturity of a company. Where are you? Am I halal certified? Yes or no? Have I been addressing the whole supply chain? Yes or no? Am I addressing Islamic banking, finance, those aspects at level 4? It doesn't mean that if I'm in stage 2, my halal product is certified, that I cannot address the supply chain or cannot address Islamic banking or finance. So you might have already incorporated some aspects of level 4 into your business. What I want to talk about this morning is halal supply chain, which requires risk management to be addressed in your chain. So what are the current issues with halal supply chains? Well, halal supply chains are very vulnerable and complex. The logistics industry likes to throw products together in storage. They like to throw products together in transport, where they can consolidate and earn better margin. There are different knowledge levels and segregation levels in the supply chain. We do audits in the LBB International for big multinationals, and we find out that the distributor that are distributing the products of a brand owner have no idea what halal is about. And then I'm asking you, who is training you, or who are you in contact with that brand owner? And they said sales. And then apparently sales is not educated on halal, only the manufacturing outlet is. The factory, everybody is knowledgeable about halal, is trained about halal, but sales is based at head office, and head office is not trained on halal matters. So there are different knowledge and also segregation practices in the supply chain. Also, halal is not communicated on free documents. So how can you expect everybody to take notice that halal needs to be segregated from beer or pork products if you don't tell them so? So I always say, hey, your segregation is as good as your communication in a supply chain. Finally, there are different requirements in Muslim markets. So Halal Brunei wants their meat products to be hand slaughtered, no stunning. Neighboring country Malaysia is okay with stunning. Neighboring country Indonesia is okay with machine slaughter and stunning. So they're all Shafi'i school of thought, and they have totally different understanding of halal slaughtering, which requires the different market requirements. So this makes halal very difficult, making easy gaps in the halal supply chain, and results in a deficient halal assurance system if you look at it from the supply chain perspective. Also, brands are exposed because there's a risk that there are incompatibilities in the supply chain with the requirements of the market. Professor Faridah will later this morning share about the experience of Cadbury. The main issue is that brands are exposed. Everybody has a handphone and can claim certain contamination issues, make it viral on the internet, which is big damaging for big brands. We have started an initiative on halal blockchains, and we think that halal blockchain technology has a high potential for halal supply chains. Blockchain technology is something new, which is in line with an evolution also known as Industry 4.0. In the old days, people were just sharing products, the barter trade, people were exchanging products in order to survive. Then the big brands came up, Unilever, Nestle. Over the years, we've seen the shared economy, Airbnb. We also have seen Uber coming up, where contents and products and services are provided by the individual companies or entities and not by the big brands anymore. The future is blockchain technology, where everybody is connected to everybody. Blockchain technology comes from Bitcoin. You might have heard it was in the news that it reached very high values. Blockchain technology is the backbone of Bitcoin, which is used for financial transactions. What happened over the past 24 months, that the technology behind Bitcoin, blockchain technology, is also used for logistics and supply chain management. That's new. What is a blockchain? It has a few characteristics. So it is an open ledger, so it is public what happened in the supply chain, public for the supply chain participants. It's distributed, so there's no big brother that stores all the data, but everybody in supply chain stores a copy of that, of the entire supply chain. It's synchronized, so it keeps track of all the activities that happen. Security is important, and the core of which is of interest to us, is the smart contract. So we can automate certain actions in the supply chain. We can create penalties and bonuses in the supply chain. For our project on halal supply chain management and halal blockchains, the smart contracts will be the focus. So blockchain projects has been practiced over the past 24 months only in the industry. So Walmart used blockchain technology to improve the trust of products in China. We had a lot of scandals in China where the Chinese consumer don't trust anymore products being sold. They are afraid they are poisoned. So Walmart and IBM are using the blockchain technology to improve trust. Microsoft is doing tests on blockchain technology to increase efficiency in supply chains. Maersk is also using blockchain technology to test it for efficiencies in the shipping industry. And also Port of Rotterdam is using blockchain technology for stock financing as well as efficiency. So these are all quite recently. So the application of blockchain technology outside the financial world in supply chain are very recent. And I'm proud to say that we are the first also to use blockchain technology, a research program on this worldwide for halal supply chains. So what do we want to do? So why are we using blockchain technology for halal supply chains? First, it's important for the consumer to have trust in the halal product. So we want to allow the Muslim consumer or the consumer to scan the product and understand where does the product come from, right? Secondly, halal supply chains are complex. So if I have to send it to Saudi Arabia, different market requirements. If I'm sending it to Thailand, or to Malaysia, or to Brunei, or to the UAE. So we want to make sure that everybody in the supply chain is notified that this product is going to Saudi Arabia. So everybody that is handling this product will work according to the Saudi requirements. If this product is going to Indonesia, so everybody in the supply chain should handle the product in accordance with the requirements of Indonesia, and so on. So we want to automate messaging in the supply chain so that everybody handling this product get automatically instruction what to do with this product, which products I can consolidate it with, from which products I should separate it with, what kind of notification I should put on the freight document so that is acceptable for the Indonesian market. What Professor Faridah will later share is the case of Cadbury. Transparency, it took, in the Cadbury case, it took 10 days before the halal certification body, JAKIM, gave a public statement what happened. The Professor Faridah will share more later about this. 10 days, it takes more than 100 years to build up a brand. 5 days, your product is possibly not halal, might snowball this and you can lose the total value of your company within 5 days. So what we want to give also a tool to the halal authorities to audit the supply chain. So if there's an issue that happens in the supply chain, we want to send information to the halal authority. This happened in the supply chain, please, you can audit it. So instead of 10 days before a public statement by the halal certification body, they only need 2 days for a public statement. 2 days instead of 10 days, they can save a lot of damage and save a lot of money to protect the reputation of companies that have the right intention, niyat, with halal and have everything in place. Finally, we want to address the performance optimization in supply chains with the blockchain technology. So the goal is a fully aligned supply chain from source to the point of consumer purchase. It is an operational system based on messaging. It is a tool for the halal authorities to isolate a halal issue, to audit what happened in the supply chain, and also a vehicle for synergy advantages in halal supply chains. About the project, so under Universiti Malaysia Pahang, a leading university worldwide on halal supply chain management and research in halal supply chain management, we want to test if this blockchain technology is useful for halal supply chains. We want to test this for food supply chains, cosmetic supply chains and pharmaceutical supply chains. We have discussed this already with 2 halal certification bodies, JAKIM and MUI, but we are inviting all halal certifications from Switzerland, from Sikot, Thailand to join this initiative. So what is our planning in this blockchain project? We want to create consensus on the design parameters first. What should the halal blockchain do? So we do that together with the industry. So this is a project. It is designed by the industry. It is co-owned by the industry. So it is designed by, it's for the industry. So we don't want to give this to IBM to make money out of this. So this is not a money-making machine. This is an interest for the Muslim world and for the industry to better protect halal integrity through the supply chain and better protect brands. So we want to test this for food, cosmetics and pharmaceutical supply chain. Based on the test results, we will then roll it out to a full-fledged system to be used by the halal industry. So what are the next steps? So we had our first start in May this year with an official launch in Kuantan, Malaysia in May this year. Our next industry dialogue sessions are next month in December. So for the cosmetics and pharmaceutical industry, they are on 12 December. So the big players, cosmetics and pharmaceutical players are on board. Retailers, it's on Wednesday, 13 December. Logistics service providers which are halal certified will be there on 13 December as well. Halal certification bodies are invited to join the workshop on Thursday, 14 December. If they cannot be physically there, if they have to come from far, like from Switzerland, they can join in through a conference call, which we will set up. That will be, the certification body session will be in the afternoon Malaysian time, which allows people from the Middle East as well as Europe also to be there present, not in odd hours. And the food session finally is on Friday, 15 December. So I'm proud to say that we have already great commitment from big players, big food brands, cosmetic brands and pharmaceutical brands. And also we hope if there are some halal certification bodies here today, or food manufacturers that are halal certified, or other places that are halal certified, to join this initiative. In conclusion, halal requires a supply chain approach. We think and we hope that halal blockchain, or the blockchain technology, can be useful technology for halal supply chains to better protect halal integrity throughout the supply chain and protect halal brands. You are invited, so if you're halal certified producer or a halal certification body, had to join this initiative to build together this new system for the halal industry. This was my presentation. Thank you very much. Kop kun krap.
Thank you, Dr. Macro Tieman, for a very impressive presentation for today. Next, I would like to invite Association Professor Dr. Banjong Waithaya Mehta to give an award, a token of appreciation to Dr. Macro Tieman. Thank you, Dr. Macro Tieman, for a very impressive presentation for today. Thank you very much. Then we are going to start about our topic today is the session of today is Global Halal Economic Trends in Science, Technology and Innovation. Now may I invite our moderator of this session today, Dr. Zafarjon Khontamov, on the stage. Mr. Zafarjon Khontamov is a Senior XP Expert, Group Strategic Planning Department, Islamic Development Bank of Saudi Arabia. The area of expertise of he is Economics, Public Policy. Please welcome Mr. Zafarjon Khontamov.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this great event that we have been enjoying already for the third day. So many experts, practitioners have been tirelessly brought together to discuss the topics of halal industry development. The topic of halal industry development and the topic of this session are very interesting and for many people in this room, I'm sure. But one thing I would like to stress is that this move or recent for last couple of years, maybe 5-10 years that I'm involved also of halal industry movement that is getting momentum every year, and Thailand is certainly playing a great role in this globally, is coming on the time that IT revolution is also taking place. So it's not also a nice coincidence, we can say, that for developing this important industry, science and IT are playing a great role. So the IT role and the trends of IT little bit will be discussed in this session, and it's a wide topic, of course. For example, the discussions today will focus around marketing issues, IT, how it is used, some cases of Cadbury we see, and the topics that we discussed by Marco also is related to this issue. Then we will have some topics about how IT can be used in farming, which is also a supply chain and halal kind of part. And also it will be touched upon some subsectors of halal industry and how IT kind of is helping those sectors to kind of grow and take momentum. And finally, there will be discussion about the Islamic arts and how Islamic arts in this day and age is helping and supporting halal industry in terms of branding, in terms of marketing, but also how IT is helping this to bring into kind of wider use and make it more kind of accessible globally and into different users and stakeholders of this industry. The marvelous and great Islamic art that has been developed over centuries of existence of our religion. So with this kind of introduction, just one more thing about Islamic Development Bank. I want to mention before starting the discussion. Islamic Development Bank is the institution that was created by 57 OIC member countries, and the objective of Islamic Development Bank is to support development of member countries, and also I must mention the Muslim communities, because we feel that Islamic Development Bank, although created by Muslim countries, it has mandate to support and be kind of always ready to support Muslim communities in non-member countries, which Thailand is one of them. And again, must be mentioned that Muslim communities, we congratulate of Thailand for taking this great initiative and role in contributing to Thailand economic growth through bringing a halal industry dimension and kind of adding value to the economy. So we are also interested, Islamic Development Bank, in halal industry development. Especially me personally work on halal industry cluster strategies, how to develop. Especially I really feel more about the marginalized kind of populations in member countries and also in Muslim communities, which are a lot, and how we can bring halal industry to them, how we can bring IT kind of support to them, and all this, the discussions. I would like my speakers and discussions after the session, like the question, to focus around how all these great advantages that are in our time can be brought to help small farmers, small SME, so that they will be part of value chain and they build their capability so that they will kind of have a share in the production and income generation from this industry development.
Yes.
Okay, with this I would like to call first speaker, maybe. You call.
Thank you, Mr. Zafarjon, for a very impressive speech to be a chairperson for today. Now, may I also invite our speaker for today. Please welcome Professor Dr. Faridah Haji Hussein, Universiti Teknologi Malaysia, Shah Alam, Malaysia. May I invite Professor Dr. Abdelaziz Bouras from the College of Engineering, Qatar University. And Mr. Farhan Tufail, the General Manager of the Halal Certification Service of Switzerland. And Mr. Daryl Prontoso, Creative Director of Celaj of Australia. Please welcome all of the speakers for today. And now I will share the floor to the Dr. Zafarjon to moderate this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have all set up for beginning the session. So I will invite you to kind of pay attention to the presentations so that you will have good questions and kind of answer session after each presentation, or we may have time to do it also a little bit because the topics will be really interesting, as I mentioned. So let me call for the presentation of our first presenter, Professor Dr. Faridah Hassan. The professor is very well known to most of you, I think, and most of you are students of the professor. Our previous speaker, Marco, is one of the bright students, I think, of the professor, and professor had impacted the growth of the industry by developing a lot of talents, and I think, alhamdulillah, she will continue doing so for the benefits of Ummah and also for the benefits of industry. So she has a lot of experience on working in the academia, research, and also mentoring, coaching talent for this halal industry across the globe. So I would like to ask you to come on stage and share with you her recent study. She has many studies on industry, by the way, on case of Cadbury, which Marco was mentioning a bit. Little details you will get about it, and please pay attention and make sure that you have some questions for interesting. Thank you. So we will have 5 minutes, 10 minutes for each, and so that we have 10 minutes? 15, okay. But it will be always encouraged to finish earlier so that we have more time to have discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Zafarjon. Khontamov. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good morning. The topic that I'll be sharing with all of you today would be on the halal issue versus branding image, because this has been quite, I would say, emerging topic due to misunderstanding by most of the public about the branding and marketing. And I purposely take one industry today to share with you, which is a real story on the case study on Cadbury Malaysia. So you have heard of what Dr. Marco mentioned just now in terms of Cadbury Malaysia, how long they need to overcome the issue. Let's see whether it's really 10 days or lesser than that, as mentioned by him. I would like to acknowledge my student who is doing a postgraduate. Her name is Norliana Zakaria. She collected some of the data, and we write a paper, and I hope Dr. Achari, I'll be resubmitting another new version before publication. Okay, so I will, once I've done with this, I'll send you the new topic or the paper that should be published. Right. Now this will be my outline of the topic, which is on branding, the brands as a big business, and other than that would be the Islamic branding, touching also on the growth, the challenges and opportunities, and why Islamic branding is really making an impact right now in the industry, in the global market, halal issues, as well as the Cadbury Malaysia itself. Can someone write? Which one is the? I think I have to use this, yeah? I will not use the laser pointer. You don't have a laser pointer? Okay, thank you. Now, to begin with, let's understand what branding is all about. Because branding has also got his own challenges, especially on the understanding branding. And last 2-3 years, if you remember, Professor Jonathan Wilson, or Bilal, Dr. Bilal as we call him most of the time, he highlighted that halal is not a brand, if you remember that, okay? But in today's presentation, I would like to emphasize to you that at this current era, halal is actually a brand on its own. Okay, what is branding to begin with? Now, branding over here is not only highlighting on the logo or the corporate identity, advertising or marketing. So you can see a few examples over here without saying anything. As you can see, there are some pictorials or also some logos over here. It can also be a branding or a brand. Now, other than that, brand is also a set of unique values, and these unique values is actually a composite of confidence, passion, a person who is in charge of it, or a company or an employee or an employer who belongs to this company can be passionate about the place that he works in. There's a sense of belonging. There is action that goes with it because it also has energy or synergy with it, and it also creates security. So the set of values, if you want to know what is associated with it, this is part of research done previously, can also be inspirational design thinking. It can also be a propaganda. It can also be creative professionals. It can be so many other things, okay, that you like to relate. Now, originally, okay, where does branding comes from? Everybody talks about brand, but they do not know the history of branding. Branding itself is a stamp of ownership. How many of you in this room are familiar with this kind of stamping? Once upon a time, there was this red glue where they put it right behind the envelope and they have this stamping over there. Have any one of you in this room have seen this stamping behind the envelope? Yeah, or some of the packaging or something like that, yeah? So this stamping is actually a guarantee of good source, and also is a guarantee of good quality. So currently when we talk about halal branding, if you see a logo like in Thailand, diamond shape, right? Whether it's red or green depending on the product packaging that you like to highlight, it is actually these two. Now remember, any mistake on that branding where you profess that this is a guarantee or an assurance can lead to a lot of damage, which I will conclude later on. Okay, let's move on. Brands are actually big business. So how can I conclude such? You take a look over here. In 2010, okay, Coca-Cola was valued at USD 70 trillion, 70.5 trillion, and that's a lot of money. And that is more than the GDP of Bolivia, Kenya, and Bahrain combined. Okay, and look at how it started. In 1886, only 9 Coca-Cola bottles were sold. But currently, or let's take about 7 years ago, in 2010, 1.6 trillion bottles were sold, and now for every person in London to drink 206 bottles each day, you will surpass the diabetes level if you take this much of drinking of Coca-Cola per day. But this is just an analogy. And I had to use this example because I was presenting this in London together with Professor Vinay, just to show how the market is like over there. Alright, many things can be branded. So if you know about marketing, 4Ps, any marketers in this room? Raise your hand. None. Most of you are scientists except Mr. Rafi here. So you're familiar with 4Ps, place, price, product and promotion. So if we look at some of the association over here, products, you're familiar with Ford, Apple, we talked about Walmart earlier, and many others. Even in Mecca, if you go over there, you are familiar with the Al-Baik Kentucky, equivalent to Kentucky Fried Chicken. How many of you have tried Al-Baik fried chicken? Right. And there is always a saying that this is a very good, tasty branding product, whereby even in Malaysia at one time, this was really a popular brand. Now we talk about services, especially like American Express, Manchester United, Emirates. For all of those who are crazed with this group of football fan club, you are really a follower. Or in terms of people, you can associate them with Lady Gaga and many others. based on the country branding, and you are familiar with Muhammad Ali as well as Nelson Mandela. If we talk about places, as I come along from the airport, I could see I Love Bangkok, BKK. That's a brand by itself. And you're familiar in UK, we have underground train. If you just mention about a place, Phuket, that is a brand name, and many others, Bali and many others, yeah? So for religion, is halal a brand? Currently, it is. And branding itself, take a look at this, is actually a composite of a few things. It can be unique, it is also a logo, it is also an identity. Your name itself is a logo. Marco Tieman, I think there's only one Marco Tieman over here, but there's many, Mr. Rafi, there's many Faridah, but it carries different weight with the personality. Alright, so what you label yourself in your name is actually branding. Now, brands can take your company, your customers, as well as you can relate it with places. So you take a look at Virgin Airlines, which is a good follower from Air Asia, where they emulate a lot of services over there, whereby they not only provide services, but they also add on into other merchandise, such as records, mobile, Tune Talk, and many others. And I was also impressed with Thai Airways, because the recent flight was my first experience on Thai Smile. And I think they have packed it very well for a no-frill service provider in terms of airline. Now, this is one of the latest comments from Margaret Whitman, 2013. When people use brand as a verb, meaning it's like something you apply. For example, you are familiar with the Millennium Group or the Gen Y. They used to say this: Google it or Skype your family, Photoshop that picture, hoover the cupboard. Actually, what they are emphasizing is the name or the brand of the product or services. And if people keep on doing that, you are actually allowing the public to promote the brand. And I'm sure a lot of you in this room use Colgate, am I right? Colgate followers, Colgate users, many, all right? Since 1960s, 1950s, until today, there are still followers on Colgate, right? And so are many other products over here. You have Toyota, Disney, and many others, yeah? Okay, brands is actually a guarantee of quality. It evokes desire. It also helps you to feel belong. Now, for those marketers over here, you must be familiar with one concept, which is known as IDA concept. So if you have a girlfriend by the name of Ida, actually it does evoke some meaningful marketing value in it, which is A for Ida, A for attention, interest, desire, and action. So when you create attention to the customers, at the end of the day, you expect them to buy. So brands actually work in a different way, like what we have mentioned earlier, and you are also familiar with other verbs like adding to Wikipedia, Facebook friends, and many others. So it keeps on going, whereby right now we do have ratings on Brand of the Year. I'm not too sure about Thailand. Do we have it, Dr. Achari? You do have branding awards in Thailand? Yes, no? Not yet. So Malaysia is going for this, and I think it will come to many Southeast Asian countries soon. Now, I just want to add one more thing over here, that brands are in ways we never could do before. By using the brand, they say, use me, mention my name many times. And it's like, in Islam, it's like a dua. The more you mention, the more popular you are. So it's like 40 times if you mention a brand name, you become very prosperous. So branding is actually, they mean what you say and what they mean what you are being named. In my previous presentation, I was kind of amazed with people's name like Saleh. All right? I'm sure quite a number of you in this room have friends by the name of Saleh. And I was wondering why a person by the name of Saleh always do wrong things in life, Mr. Marco. All right? And it boils down to one thing that I can conclude is the way you pronounce it, because it should be soleh instead of saleh. When you pronounce it wrongly, the person will do a lot of wrongdoings in their life. So be careful when you put some branding with you. All right, that's one typical example. Now this is an example in New York, whereby they put on this halal brand over here, halal food, and it became very popular because there were followers by putting this brand, this certification at the store. So I'm not going to go through that very much, but you can read it later on from the slides that I'm going to leave behind. But the most famous Philip Kotler always highlighted that branding is a competitive marketing tool. So you can see the various popular brands. Starbucks is just everywhere, including in this convention center. And as in the latest research on Starbucks, the Generation Y and Millennium do not like coffee. Mind you, they do not like coffee. But they would buy Starbucks because of the packaging and the logo, and they love to carry that packaging wherever they go. And I have to agree with that because Najwa and Faridah was with me in Turkey, and they don't like coffee, but they bought the chocolate more with them. Faridah, you are there, right? Thank you. And Islamic branding, okay, this is another section of it. Produced in Islamic country stands a higher chance of in terms of confidence level. So I presented this 3 years ago in Thailand, and the question that was asked to me by the journalist is that whether a brand that comes from an Islamic country stands a better chance than a brand that comes from a non-Islamic country. I have to tell you that the answer is yes. So probably we can do a win-win situation in order to do the promotion. I try to do the conclusion. So that's the conclusion for this particular slide. But Ogilvy Noor also highlighted that when you do Islamic branding, you must have Sharia values, appeal to Muslim consumer worldwide, be Sharia friendly as well as Sharia compliance, and the last one, they must have identity, behavior and character, or they can communicate quietly to the world. Now the growth of Islamic brand, as you can see over here, with various countries noted over here, is very important because it is very sensitive to consumers. So take note that France and Sweden and also Netherlands, where Dr. Marco comes from, are one of the leading countries that has a growth in Islamic brand. So the challenges and opportunities in Islamic branding is actually to have a business model. You must have the customer's needs in terms of the faith towards the product and the brand of halal, trust in the product as well as certification, value chain, and if possible to handle the anti-Islamic brand known as Islamophobia. So this is the latest book, if you are interested to find out more about Islamic branding, written by Wright and Snook in 2017. And one point that I wanted to highlight over here is that instead of adding value, optimize relationship, and engage with customer, you have to deliver happiness, happening, and harmony. So this is the part on Cadbury. When we talk about halal issue, these are some of the things that you have to be alert, that it is pork free and it does not intermix with non-halal material, the logo, the quality, the certification, and also the authenticity. And okay, Cadbury has been the Malaysia's favorite chocolate. However, in 2014, we had a scandal that was forced by JAKIM to suspend Cadbury Malaysia's halal certificate. And with that, they lost the customer's trust. And okay, coming back to what Dr. Marco mentioned, it was highlighted on 23rd May 2014, and the Ministry of Health tested it positive. And in the following day, they had to withdraw voluntarily all the products, 2 products in fact, which is hazelnut and rose almond. And on the 3rd day, 26 May, Jakim collected samples in the factory, and on the 2nd June of 2014, that was May, June, almost about 2 weeks after that, Jakim verified that the test results, both affected batches, are actually halal. So part of it is considered as fitnah. And this is the CEO who highlighted and was proud to correct the situation. But please remember, there is a conclusion about, I'm sure you have listened, like once broken, it is considered sold. In branding, once damaged, it affects the image and it can be forever. So some of the challenges that they have to go through would be the supply chain, the halal requirement, the logo, the assessment of World Halal Market, and the guidance and assistance. And this effect went to EU countries where Cadbury, apart from displaying the latest new halal certificate, it also became an issue in the European market because of the Easter egg at that time. And these are some of the comments from the Facebook, if you can read it. And because of only 2 products, the whole entire range of Cadbury products were affected. And until today, it is a struggle for Cadbury Malaysia. And Cadbury losses more than £6 million. That's a lot, yeah, for that particular year in the during the sales of cream eggs products. And finally, this is my last slide. You require the innovation tool to help boost the business growth, especially in country where Muslims population is dominant. So you cannot play around with branding because, as I've mentioned to you, once damaged, it will affect the image. So with that, thank you and khop kun kap. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much, Doctor. One thing I think I took, away is that we need to pronounce names correctly so that the people make good, yes. For me, lesson is to pronounce names of panelists correctly. And if panel has some comments about, if no questions, we will have time. No. I rehearsed a little bit so that I will do as. Now, next will be Dr. Abdelaziz Bouras. He's coming from the same part of world that I come from, Middle East. So in that part, I like here is little bit dry and kind of agriculture growing is much difficult because land is very scarce. Unlike here, you drop anything, maybe grows. There you have difficulties. So this led into like scientists like Dr. Abdelaziz to work into how to kind of, in those situations, difficult situations, how to bring IT technology to help kind of boost production of agriculture. And especially in our case, we discuss about halal food. And halal food is a big issue globally, is a scarce commodity, and especially in OIC countries, it is like food security is a big issue. And for us, it's not only food security, but halal food security, because it should not be just food, but halal for OIC and Ummah. So with the aim of producing more halal food globally available, hopefully we will kind of meet at the same time demand of food security, but also halal food for. So this is a topic of discussion and it's very interesting. So please pay attention and it will be kind of another part of how IT and kind of technology can be used to help growth of this industry. Thanks.
Maybe this one. You can put it on the bottom. Okay. Excellent. Good. Yeah, just to, no. No, it's okay. It's okay. Good. I mean. No, I don't have it. Actually, I have it, but
May I attention to all again for the guests. Please scan your QR code before going out because you will get your e-certification in front of this room.
Talking about IT use, now we have difficulties. We're using it to run on time and be efficient. We apologize for this. We will kind of shift to another our panelist, Mr. Farhan Tufail. Please welcome to talk about an interesting subsector of halal industry, which is cosmetics, and how you see IT there helping, and how overall that industry has potential. And please share the findings you have from your study and research with participants.
So, good morning, everybody. I will try to wake you up. I think in the next 15 minutes, I will try to stick to the next 15 minutes. So, let's keep a few slides because we have a short time bound. So, I will start off, maybe give you a few figures. What are the standards around right now in halal cosmetics? What is population? What is the potential? And maybe also, although it's not part of my initial presentation or the topic given to me, but I think it's quite interesting to talk about the gaps which are around in halal cosmetic and conclude with a conclusion, obviously. So halal cosmetics and personal care is basically defined as beauty care which complies to Islamic norms. There should be no contamination with forbidden substances, obviously in the whole value chain. It's a principle of purity. Men and women, Muslim men and women using halal cosmetic and personal care product want them to be compliant to their religious belief so that they can make their daily religious obligations and that they can be accepted. Halal is obviously, as we have seen through the different presentations, is becoming more and more quality and purity mark, and this especially in cosmetics. Halal cosmetic is obviously a purity mark. The standards around nowadays are mainly basically Malaysia was the one giving us the standards already in 2008. UAE gave out a standard in 2010, which basically covers the main subject of halal cosmetic and what should be in there and what should not be included in the halal cosmetics. Interestingly, actually, Muslim population in the non-Muslim world is obviously keen to use and utilize halal cosmetics and personal care products. Here I have put together a few slides which will show you the Muslim population in the non-Muslim world, because obviously my topic is to cover the non-Muslim countries. You can see the Southeastern Asia is obviously quite interesting when it comes to the market, and obviously Thailand as one of the major players when it comes to non-Muslim countries in this area. And obviously Muslims are not only around in the East. If we go to Europe, where I come from, obviously Muslims are growing quite rapidly. This has happened due to the migration which has happened over last year. And as we stand here, the forecast is that Muslim population will grow quite rapidly because of the migration and obviously Muslim growth as a young population. The migrators who have come to Europe, they are belonging to the young age group, and they will obviously grow quickly. This is also a quite interesting slide. I hope you can still read it. If these are all non-Muslim countries, majority companies, and you can see that the perception of the people living in these countries, how the Muslim population is, they obviously always overestimate the Muslim population and are putting the figures always wrong. So the European countries, the population of Muslims in the European countries are forecast to triple up to 2050. There is an indifferent growth between East and West Europe. For example, Germany is being estimated to grow from 6.1% to up to 20% till to 2050. And when we have the example of Poland, where the population will grow approximately from 0.1 to 0.2% only. And as I said, the younger age profile and the high fertility rate among the Muslims will cause the growth and rapid growth across all European countries. And what is the driving force? Obviously, for Muslims to look for halal products, and especially in our case halal cosmetics, is the increase in the awareness amongst Muslims consumer for the halal products and also non-Muslim consumers, because halal products are considered to be hygienic and healthy. Which is a good perception actually. And halal products are increasingly available in various stores, whether it be hypermarkets or supermarkets. And the dramatic growth of Muslim travelers is anticipated also to double spending in the next 10 years. The market, I think, we have seen these figures around, so I will skip quite quickly through them. The figures usually around with trillions of dollars, but the halal cosmetic and personal care sector is estimated to grow in the next 5 years by 15%, which is quite interesting. And here you see the spending and the main markets actually where the halal cosmetic is coming from. The main countries exporting to the UAE markets are sitting in Europe, and also providing and producing the products for the non-Muslim countries. Apart from the population, it's also interesting how religious then these Muslims are and how important for them is then to buy a halal product, which is again more interesting for the Muslim markets where the products are going. And this is, I think, the most interesting part for me, covering this topic is the challenges which we face, we as a certifier and you as a consumer of halal products, especially when we talk about cosmetics. What are the main challenges when we talk about halal cosmetic market? First of all is the human resources. I think it's a challenge which covers the whole supply chain when we talk about halal products or halal industry, is the non-availability of Muslim human capital. The lack of training and awareness amongst the relevant employees. When we go into the industry, usually the understanding of halal is very little, whether it be Muslim or non-Muslim. And the issue related to competency of employees due to lack of understanding of religious matters. I mean, the main issue what we encounter when we visit the company is the first one in Europe is whether they can produce a halal product where they also are producing non-halal products on the same line. Then the ingredients. This is something I was reading through the presentation which were prepared and the poster which was posted on for cosmetic, but these are the ingredients which I think Halal Science Center as such should be working on, because these are the questions which we are discussing right now with the cosmetic industry. These are a few of the examples which European cosmetic manufacturers are using and which are a bit problematic when we think it from the halal point of view. Cosorium absolute is ingredient extracted from the glands of the beaver animal. Camel urine, I think I don't need to explain what it is. Donkey milk powder goes without saying, and snail slime. So these are just 4 ingredients, and there are many more. Ethanol, thanks God, at least we are talking in the other room about harmonizing halal standards, at least in cosmetic. On alcohol, at least these 3 countries have come to the same page that ethanol which is being used in cosmetic products should not come from khamar source, should not be intoxicated, and that it can be used for external use without any limits, which is a positive part. Then a big challenge is the migration. When we talk about migration from packaging into the products, this also covers the whole value chain when we talk about halal products. We have come across, when we have gone into details of packaging material, that there are animal ingredients being used in packaging material which could migrate into the product and could jeopardize the halal status of products. Labeling. This is a slide which is quite sensitive, I think, in the current situation, but I would like to show this because some of the countries which halal products are going to, when product labels are used on these products, then certain countries would say that you have to have their logo on the packaging, which makes it then again quite challenging for the producers, because they obviously, the packaging, you know how a cosmetic product looks like. It's not a big packaging or a big product, and then if you have to put more than one quality mark, it will become becomes a big challenge for the producers. The conclusion, obviously, cosmetic products, the market is huge due to the growing demand and the migration of Muslim population, whether it be into the non-Muslim countries, from Muslim countries into non-Muslim countries. I hope, although since 15 years we always talk about harmonizing halal standards. I think the halal standards doesn't need to be harmonized, although the second room will disagree to me. I think it's the certification practices which need to be harmonized, so that a product which is certified in Thailand, I in Switzerland can consume it without asking it again how it was certified, because I know that the certification practices are the same all over the world, and mutual recognition, obviously. And we as a Muslim community should proactively approach the upcoming challenges and find solutions. We should not be reactive, we should be proactive. Thank you very much. I have gained 3 minutes for you.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation, an update on cosmetics, and also for the 3 minutes. As you kind of heard a little bit about how importance of growth in Muslim communities in non-Islamic countries is driving one of the sub-industries. And especially one thing should be noted, that in most cases, Muslim communities in non-Islamic countries, although they have faced challenges, but they also have opportunities from better education, and also be advocate of kind of halal industry in Islam. So they are kind of in the forefront to kind of introduce the halal industry, and also the branding, and we said marketing of it. So our Muslim communities, playing important role, and we need to, like Muslim countries, support them in this. And if you have any questions that you want to raise now, please. Otherwise, we will have at the end some time, so that we will see how all the topics that we discuss come together, and what kind of interesting questions will come from audience, and we will be discussing. So next would be another also very interesting subject, is Islamic arts, and it plays important role in advancing the industry itself, but also specifically for each SMEs and companies, how they can use Islamic arts, that is natural way of kind of branding halal industry and halal products and services comes to play. And our speaker, Mr. Daryl Prondoso, will share his experience, how he is helping small SMEs and startups to kind of get advantage of this, and how to scale this. He will have some kind of insights to share with you, and we will have opportunities to discuss it more maybe. Thanks.
Salam. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having me to speak here. It's really an honor to be here. So my name's Daryl. The screen before was wrong. I'm actually the creative director of Zafarjon. We're an inspired innovation company. I'm from Australia. I'm unfortunately not a scientist or an academic. I'm just a graphic designer. But I've been a graphic designer for as long as I can remember. My work focuses heavily on branding and creating digital and print experiences. But I also have a long history and passion for craft-based arts and printmaking practices. You may or may not know Peter Gould. I've worked closely with Peter for the past 10 years, and you might know him as having created some of the most iconic brands and Islamic artworks in the last decade. Over the years, at the Sydney studio together, we've helped create work for some iconic Islamic brands. These are some of them. And this is the studio. Now, I'm no historian or esteemed art critic, but over the years of designing for Islamic brands and audiences, my understanding and appreciation for Islamic arts has grown immensely. And along with it, a deeper understanding and appreciation for Islam's many ongoing global contributions towards visual culture, architecture, and science and technology, among others. And I only have a few minutes, so consider this just a brief introduction into Islamic art, in particular patterns in art. My aim is to show a brief history and how I see its evolution and place in the future. I'm fascinated in what happens when you combine creativity, art, design, technology, and culture, and how these modes of making can be used to continue and extend on traditions and give modern audiences an insight into Islam's creative lineage and enduring heritage. David Khalili wrote in the preface to his book, The Timeline History of Islamic Art and Architecture, that there is much more that unites people than divides them, and that an appreciation of art is a fundamental unifying factor. This holds true, and I believe that the art of Islam has the ability to transcend. So, what is Islamic art? In one way, it can be described as art produced by Muslim artists for Muslim patrons, although it's not always exclusively religious. To step back a bit historically and look at the origins, it goes back to when the Islamic era began in the year 622 with the emigration from Mecca to Medina. Within just a few centuries, Islam had spread to embrace territories stretching from Spain, Afghanistan, North India, Africa, Southeast Asia, and the frontiers of China. Civilizations of very, very different religious, historical, and artistic backgrounds were thus united under the one banner of Islam. And the subsequent golden age in these lands brought upon major advancements in science, mathematics, and the arts. Islamic art and architecture reflects the geographical diversity of these lands and is influenced by the artistic traditions of them. Local styles were adapted to the needs of the new faith, and this became intensified through continued trade, creating a multitude of different styles and forms that all fall under the category of what we call Islamic art today. These forms include architecture, mosaics, tiles, carvings, book production, decorative arts such as glass, metalwork, pottery, jewelry, textiles, and so many others. All have completely distinctive different styles, and while sparsely different, as the culture evolved, certain styles and symbols became more widely used throughout. The Quran was originally transmitted in Arabic, so naturally, Arabic script and calligraphy featured prominently as decorative elements, and as a way to uniquely reflect the Word of God. The beauty of Islamic calligraphy lies not only in the endless creativity and versatility of the forms, but also in the way calligraphers balance between conveying a text and expressing its meaning. And calligraphy featured alongside another incredibly important characteristic of Islamic art. One of its most familiar features being the extensive use of arabesque scrollwork, geometric motifs, and interlaced patterns. So what's a pattern? We see patterns occur in everyday life. We see it in data, science, and maths. We see it in nature. Patterns are templates. They're regularities, repetitions, unity. They surround us and often help us make sense of and give order to the world. In the context of Islamic art, patterns, for one, play a very functional role in decoration. We can see this in the logo of the event and the stalls outside. But why? Hadiths prohibit the representation of human beings and animals in a religious context. And while figural scenes, particularly of birds and animals, did exist in secular art, most decoration tends to avoid it. To get around this, early makers utilized abstraction, the use of arabesques, floral and geometric designs to adorn buildings and objects. And the complexity of these shapes and the use of repetition provided inspiration and wonder to those viewing. Arabesque floral patterns were widely used by the 7th and 8th century, which can be seen in examples such as Dome of Rock. The Great Mosque of Kairouan, Tunisia, also utilizes these floral motifs. And this site is also one of the earliest attempts to display geometrical ornaments in architecture, and it's seen on the left. But we can see in the example that they're quite basic and isolated figures. Compare this to Alhambra in Spain, and you can see how these patterns and their complexity evolved over time. So in these times, there was no Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, no 3D printers to fabricate this. All these shapes were created utilizing a compass and a straight edge and very, very steady hands. These shapes were combined, repeated, squares and circles, then they're intricately overlapped, interlaced, and repeated into an almost infinite number of combinations. So to construct a shape like this, we start off with a circle in a square, then we can divide this circle. And when we start dividing it up, we can see that there are these lines which we call the underlying grid. And if we start intersecting these lines and adding shapes, then you can see what's called construction lines. And if you start combining them together, remove the underlying grid and repeat, you start creating a pattern. So this one's pretty simple, but they can get more complex. And while this might not make sense yet, it becomes one of the most well-known patterns that you see in a lot of mosques today. Here is an example of a chart that outlines the different eras and the different evolutions in that historic time. And what I find fascinating is that all of these are created with just simple tools. When you combine a little bit of math and some creativity, they get really crazy. And the more I think about it, the more my head almost explodes because I'm trying to figure out how they work and it's mind-blowing. But what does it all mean? Many scholars look at the symbolism of these patterns, the circle being at the center of which all these patterns begin. And many people can see the circle as symbols, such as unity, faith, and God. Or perhaps a circle could represent Mecca, with its followers looking towards the center. The stars used and the petals can be seen as divine light. And then if we repeat these shapes, then they may also suggest wonder or God's infinite nature. So looking around, it's quite obvious that this aspect of Islamic art has truly stood the test of time. These forms are still able to excite and inspire. But how do we expand on this today? Contemporary Islamic art isn't just about this one aspect, but there are indeed artists that continue to use these symbols, and in doing so continue on this creative lineage and bring it into the present day. You might be familiar with MC Escher's work, who often creates surreal tessellations, and his work is mainly influenced by visits to Alhambra. Artists such as Inkman and El Cid combine calligraphy with graffiti, once again adorning buildings and places, but replacing carving tools with spray cans and grand structures with the street. Shirin Gurjus is an Egyptian-born LA-based artist. Her work deals with the ideas of immigrants leaving home and her heritage and the effects of the Egyptian diaspora. Her work collages these images and creates almost a sense of memory or holding on to fragments of the past. Shireen Tufail is a Sydney artist, and her work is also about her own cultural heritage, using Islamic decorative arts as a basis and using new mediums to explore new and old. This is another example of using new and old. Elvira Wersch is a German artist and uses sand gathered from hundreds of different, sometimes sacred locations. I believe this work has sand from 600 locations. These pieces take weeks to create, meticulously pouring each grain of sand. But at the end of the construction, a performance takes place. Contemporary dancers perform on top of the work, moving to music and mixing all of the grains of sand together, perhaps suggesting ideas of coming together as one despite our different faiths or geographies. I played this game the other day. It's a video game called Engare, and it's not only a drawing tool, but it uses Islamic pattern, physics, maths to actually play a fun, interesting puzzle game, bringing this idea to newer audiences. Now, art and design serve two very different purposes. But in design, we utilize many of these visual signifiers throughout. As we saw yesterday and today from Rafi's speech and Dr. Faridah's speech, there's a huge importance of the global Islamic economy and its different halal sectors, from food to travel, fashion, cosmetics. By 2030, there'll be 2.2 billion Muslims making up 27% of the population, That's a huge amount of people around the world with diverse cultures, tastes, but at the same time, all connected. This growth will come with more new brands, more new startups, and more products than ever. And they're all driven by faith. And along with it, a higher demand for quality in the brands. Of course, not all Muslim products or brands need to utilize patterning, but what's of key importance is the use of creativity and innovation. Islam has such a rich visual language that we can leverage, and when we can use it as a frame of reference to portray heritage, or we can play and experiment to delight audiences. We can use it to unify and connect. Some examples of some work that we've done, whether it's for small communities or Thomson Reuters. This is a fun project that we've been working on and we're launching soon. It's called Salam Sisters. We've utilized patterning throughout. I don't know if you can see it on that screen, but they've got little love hearts in it. This is a really fun project because we are bringing this kind of idea of community to new generations. And what I find really cool is we've created a little princess version and she's got these patterns used in her scarf. And we also, as part of this, created what's called a Neuralink. While it looks like just a pattern, we've actually created as an AR marker, so when you scan it, it creates little 3D games. Another great project we've worked on asks a lot of questions. What about the future? When we build mosques in space, will they be adorned with similar features? Will AR Qurans contain the same visual language? How will calligraphy look when it's 3D in hologram form? I'm excited to see how we can continue to push and evolve the medium. A colleague told me of how great scholars in Islam also describe rich patterns in tiling as a metaphor for the whole ummah. If that's the case, then we can continue to use them to enrich and grow, especially for the future generations. Islamic art continues to be a connecting thread that can be used as a way to provide inspiration, positivity, and unite all people. And I have 1 minute left. But thank you.
Thank you very much for very nice presentation. I think everyone enjoyed, even our eyes enjoyed the kind of beauty. And this kind of comes to your mind when you see this kind of creativity, the depths and the limitlessness of this kind of opportunity for creating with few things so many kind of beauties and things. So sometimes when you think about halal industry and prohibitions, you think that opportunities and options are reduced. But when you see this type of presentation, you think opposite. That even with a few items and elements, God gave people so much kind of opportunity and wisdom to create and to kind of be innovative. And even with few elements, there is opportunities to do more. But alhamdulillah, in halal industry, we have only few kind of prohibitions. So there are even more kind of opportunities for our Muslims, producers, talents who create to do a lot of things with halal industry. And we need such talents to kind of be hands in hand and learn from each other. So this was very inspiring presentation for, I think, all halal practitioners, no matter where they are working in branding, arts, or just producing different types of products or services. So we will kind of invite our last speaker. He was some technical issues now. I hope they are resolved. Dr. Abdelaziz Bouras to share his research findings and experience on how farming can be done more efficiently. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, and I really apologize about the disruption. I cannot promise that my slides will be as beautiful as my colleague, but I will do my best. So today I will talk about the IT point of view on smart farming. Try to see if it works. Okay, it works, yeah. Okay, so as you know, many reports actually are saying that the agriculture in the future will have some difficulties, and that's normal because of the growing populations and the shrinking spaces. So we need to find solutions, and we think that IT can help or can contribute a little bit to finding some solutions. So by smart farming, we need farming with the use of ICT. So as you can see here, ICT can be used to improve the farming in terms of production processes. For example, how to make better irrigation, fertilizing, pesticiding, etc. But also it helps in increasing the quality, quantity, and profit of the agricultural production. So this definitely, if we use the ICT in the right way for farming, it leads to the use of decision-making tools, like we are using this in the industry. For automotive or space, we are using similar technologies, and that lead to real decision-making platforms or systems that help the decision makers to go beyond what we have today. And this is definitely based on automation measures, technologies like Internet of Things, sensor technology, big data, drones, robots, etc. So there are many initiatives today when it comes to smart farming. So I will try to give you some examples from Thailand. We are working with University of Chiang Mai, for example, and I'm very happy to see that Dr. Ajadon is here, and he is one of the partners for such works. And you can see here some examples. When we say smart farming, it doesn't mean everything is IT at the basis. Smart farming could be also solutions like this. Like here you can see for the first picture, which is based on hydroponic systems at major university, for example, they are making these systems. And the IT is controlling just the system behind. But the design itself of the smart farming is not based on ICT. In the second example, you can see, for example, here, a melon greenhouse in Chiang Mai. And here the idea is also to reduce the land, to reduce the space, and to enhance the production. Here also it's based on sensor technology to control the irrigation and the fertilizer systems. So you can see here that we don't need big land. With just few things, we can really produce the same thing that in big land. And this is very important for us, for example, as my colleague said, that we are coming from small countries, in my case, from Qatar. We don't have space, and we don't have the real land for the agriculture. So these kind of solutions are really the solution for us to be self-sufficient, or at least to help the country making some internal solutions. This example is designed and made by Ajadon and his team. So we are really proud to see that in Chiang Mai, they are producing what we call the modular farms. So the modular farm is a kind of container, it could be very small, in which you are producing salads, tomato, etc. And it's really a small container. A salad, for example, in such containers lasts 5 days. It means that every week you can have your salad, new salad, etc. So this is really fantastic, and it works because of the ICT. I will tell you why. So this is just the 3D model. You can see all the technologies that we are using, or that they are using, actually, for this container. All of them are needed. They are using the hydroponic system. This is very important because as you don't have the land, so you need the water, and you need to use the minimum amount of water. So the hydroponic system is one of the big solutions when it comes to such things. And of course, we need also to use the ICT to control the different parameters or different features of your smart farm. Here you can see we have different parameters here, and they are all controlled by sensors, and they are all visualized on just a mobile application. And you can see really if things are going wrong or no. So you can have curves, you can have plots of the data. Sometimes it doesn't work. Okay, you have other solutions like what we call the rotary gardens. I don't know if you know about this. You can find it on YouTube. So here, the big cities, for example, are really interested in these solutions. Here you have your garden is in a cylinder, and that cylinder is rotating. And you can have many cylinders in a rack, and then you can have a lot of racks that you can put in a vertical way. It's a kind of building of cylinders, and you have a system that can take the cylinder, take it back, etc., etc., depending on the things that you are putting inside, salad or tomato. So you can put them there and bring them, etc. So it looks like that. So maybe this is not working today, but you can see it in the next years, definitely, because the technology is there and there is no problem. Maybe the only problem is the cost, actually, for these kind of things. So another thing which is very important is when we go for these solutions, which are small, so they are modular, and we can reuse them. I was talking about the containers. For example, in the country from where I am coming, you know about the World Cup, etc. So one of the stadium will be built by containers. You see that stadium? You see here? So maybe 80% of the shape of the stadium will use containers. And it's exactly the same containers, they are maritime containers, the same that Don is using for his smart farm. So at the university, what we are doing, so you can see here, at the beginning there are nothing, then the stadium is there, then at the end of the game they will disassemble it because they are just containers, and either they build all a small stadium or they give it to poor countries, or the proposal from my students at my university is to use this actually exactly for smart farming. It means that the containers, we can reuse them after 2 or 3 years from now, and we can just give them to the city, we can give them as donation to the people who are interested. So they can put them all together, or they can use them independently. We can imagine that each house can have its own container. And in terms of sustainability and environmental impact, this is huge. Now, we have some challenges, because what we are saying is in terms of design, in terms of production, it's okay, but in terms of IT, we have a big problem. It's exactly the problem that we had in the industry. When I was talking about automotive industry, and the problem is all these applications are becoming data-driven. And you heard about data analytics or big data, etc. So we are capturing a lot of data, millions of data. And how to treat this? When we think about the future, how to do with all this data? We cannot store all the data. We have to preserve only the needed data for the future. And today we don't know how to do, because we cannot select the data. We have too many data. So you can see here the data coming from different areas, and we have a real problem. At the stage of the technology today, we have algorithms, we have what we call big data analytics, but it's not sufficient. So another example, or an example about big data, so with Ajadon, we have a PhD student in Chiang Mai who is working on the longan, you know? And longan is very important for the economy of Thailand in terms of exports. However, we have to take care, because, you know, the change of the weather, etc., the quality is not always the same. So we have to introduce sensors everywhere in the life cycle of the longan, from the beginning to the end, and we have to capture all this data to be able to understand or to be able to help actually the longan growing in the right way. So we have sensors everywhere, where we are doing tests, putting sensors everywhere, and in the same time we are trying to capture the farmers' expertise, because the farmers know exactly what does it mean. This is just to tell you that everywhere we have a variety of information which is really very, very important, but also very big. Capturing this is one thing, but creating this and understanding it, etc., is not very easy when it comes to IT. It's exactly what we did. Before these projects, I was working in Europe about what you call smart technologies or smart products, and it's exactly the same problem that we have. We are still having it, we did not solve it, and smart production or smart farming is going exactly to the same problem like the industry. Okay. Another problem that we have is you take any component from the smart farming, and I said that smart farming is not just the container, it could be also the big field with IT, using sensors everywhere. So here, this is just a small example from my colleagues to show you that the products that we are using in smart farming, like a tractor, for example, here, are becoming very complex objects that are also giving data. So at the beginning, it was a product like this. Then it became smart because we added some tablets or etc. Then today, these components are becoming connected to other things. It's exactly like the connected cars in the city. And it means that we are going to the notion of system. It's not just a product, it's a system. And tomorrow, definitely, we are going here. So we have many systems that are connected to each other in the smart farm. And this is exactly what we want, but in the same time, when we have a system, complex system, or what we call a system of system, here we have no model actually in terms of data interoperability or data integration, etc. It's very difficult to make it. We have exactly the same problem today when we talk about smart factory or the factory industry 4.0. This is the problem that we are having. All the models that we have created before are not really seriously working because the complexity is so high. So another problem, another challenge actually is, I think my colleagues talked also about this, is the trust. When you have data everywhere and you have many people in your supply chain and you don't know really what they are doing with your data, then the problem of trust is there. So I think we are three talking about the same thing, and here we talk about trustworthiness, which is beyond the trust, it's also the safety, security, privacy, resilience, and reliability. So if you want the smart farming to be efficient, we have really to solve this problem. And this, today, I think my colleague Marco, Dr. Marco, talked about the blockchains. So this is one of the disruptive technologies that we are also trying in the supply chain of the smart farming, and this is very important. In terms of, I will not go deep in the explanation because there are some platforms, and we are using the NIST, which is the American Institute of Standards and Technology platform, about what we call the CPS, Cyber Physical Systems, to try to tackle this problem using blockchain also. Then the other challenge that we have in the smart farming is related to the strategy. Actually, smart farming, as I said, uses a lot of data. And these data, what to do about it? Technically, you have to store it, you have to use it, but in the same time, you can actually monetize it, you can sell it. It's exactly like any supply chain today. You can see that around us in the industry, we have some companies who are just taking the data and selling it to you. Think about what is happening around Facebook, around people, companies, specific companies are taking your data and they are selling it to others. So here it's also an opportunity for these companies to take the data and to sell it to the others. So the farmers, they have two solutions. Either they play this game and they try to use their data in the way that they monetize them, or they have to find solutions and they don't use open systems, etc. So here it's a big question today. And if really we go to smart farming, which is 100% IT, this is the question of the strategy is very important for them. Then we have another problem is the business model that goes with it. So the smart farming is opening new era in terms of business models and problem of preservation. As I told you, so you need to have a strategy for preservation. We cannot store all the data that we are capturing. It's impossible. So you have to select among the data, and today we don't know what is the data that will be very important in the long term. So we are really in the middle of the streets and we don't know really what to do. So in terms of the technology, we still don't have the technology that helps us. Thank you very much. I think...
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdelaziz. I think the session has ended, but it was interesting. And one thing, I mean, if I can say the session should have achieved for you is to show you the kind of inspire you that halal industry itself is about sustainability, and it's about opportunities and the limitlessness of how you can do things in any areas that you are working. So I hope all these panel presentations and the discussion we will have, if we have time, now show this. Especially the last presentation showed this dimension of opportunities that, for example, our ancestor and most of us, I mean, in living rural areas, which was the style of living historically, we used to see what we grow and eat from there. But when we move to kind of centralizations and urbanization, more people coming together, this model of lifestyle is changing and has been changing, and it's a trend that is going on. And last presentation shows that one of the things that it can bring this halal production and food into maybe more urban areas, so that it will be like more, again, opportunity to see what is grown and to know about it, more data, and kind of be aware of what we are eating. And it's all about helping and supporting halal industry. Okay, with this, I would like to open a session like for 1 or 2 questions, and if we have time, we will get more, or any comments or kind of insights you want to share after hearing our panel discussion. Thanks.
My name is Tieman. I have a question for Professor Faridah. You shared about Islamic branding and halal branding. For big brands like Starbucks, these are so-called import brands, how do you see the future of branding for them? Do they need to change their logo or fully leverage on the brand of Halal Malaysia? So how do you see the future for import brands regarding halal? So what should they do according to you?
Thank you, Dr. Marco.
I think I was being asked on Coca-Cola to begin with, how do you make that halal? I guess one of the requirement would be the first to look into what it takes to halalize the product at the current situation. It's more like if you can embrace tourism from Muslim friendly to Sharia compliance. So in order to encourage MNCs to do all this halal branding is to have this education on why it takes to make it more acceptable to the Muslim market and what is the effect of having it halal and non-halal. And I guess we have to start with the global marketing first in order for them to understand the impact of the product on them. I guess Dr. Marco is very familiar with Cadbury, but I remember another case in Malaysia, Gardenia, if you remember that case. Within 1 week, the whole company was about to close shop the production because they just can't proceed anymore with such bad image due to the DNA porcine. And the owner wanted to commit suicide because he couldn't solve the problem and the labs were taking time, like what you mentioned, not able to come up with a concrete answer whether it was really a true story of contamination or cross-contamination. But later on, even though it has been corrected, just like Cadbury, the damage has been done. So there's still a stigma on it. So I guess if MNC is going to look into this market with so many population coming up, 2050, 2030, as the the trillion number of USD market value, that's a step that they should make it a drastic change. And sometimes it must come from people like Dr. Marco Tieman rather than Faridah Hassan, because it takes another person from the same background to convince, because we are not looking into something Islamizing people, but we are looking into the goodness of the product and the value behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Faridah, for a very answer.
I have one more question.
Another question? Yes.
Right, my question goes to Mr. Darrow. All right, my question is that how do you convince the non-Muslim countries to accept the concept of Islamic art?
Again, please, louder.
So how do you convince the non-Muslim countries to accept the concept of Islamic art?
Hello, can you hear me? I think that's an interesting question. I'm actually personally not Muslim myself, and I come from Australia, and I think it just comes from openness. I think once someone stands in a room and sees the beauty of it, I think it convinces them straight away. That worked for me. I think it's getting people into that room in the first place. So the more we see it, I think the easier it will be to accept across places.
Thank you, Dr. Daryl. Are there another question or any question? Thank you all the participants for today, and I would like to thank you all of the speakers for a very impressive and very inspired of the topic for today. Now I would like to, may I invite Dr. Professor Association Professor Dr. Banjong Waithiametha to award to taken up appreciation to the moderator of this session is Mr. Zafarjon. Mr. Zafarjon, thank you for being a chairperson and moderator for today. Thank you, Mr. Zafarjon. And may I invite Professor Dr. Faridah Haji Hussain and Dr. Banjong award a token of appreciation for a very impressive speech for today. Thank you, Dr. Faridah. And may I invite Professor Dr. Abdelaziz Bouras from the College of Engineering, Qatar University, and award a token of appreciation. Thank you, Dr. Bouras. May I invite Mr. Farhan Tufail from the General Manager Halal Certification Service of Switzerland. taken appreciation award today. Thank you, Mr. Farhan. And may I invite Mr. Daryl Pondoso, Creative Director of Zillige, Australia, for a very inspiring image for today. Thank you. And may I invite all of the speakers on the stage to take a photo memorial. Please, thank you. And yesterday we have a oral presentation and a poster presentation, and today we will announce the award today. Thank you all of the speakers for the two topics for today. Thank you very much. Congratulations to Dr. Punut Muhammad. And our best award or our winner for oral presentation is Ms. Kuntila Saleh from the Halal Center University. Her topic is the lipidomic screening of porcine phospholipid specific markers applicable for halal food authentication. Congratulations to Ms. Kuntila. And the award of poster presentation, the second winner of this award is Mr. Pitak Anmare from the Halal Science Center University. His topic is application of halal science and technology to enhance knowledge on halal food safety in hospital kitchens in 5 southern border provinces in Thailand. Congratulations to Mr. Pitak. And our best award or our winner for poster presentation session is Ms. Chalermsee Chayasatit, a scientist at the Halal Science Center, Chulalongkorn University. Her topic is screening of phenolic compound from defatted perilla seed pomace extract by using LCESIQ-12MS. Congratulations to Ms. Chalermsee. Thank you everybody of all participants and speakers for today for giving a very impressive and very inspiring topic for today. And may I inform you a little bit about our session in afternoon. Will begin at 1:30 p.m. Our session in the afternoon is in the theme of methodology in halal science and accreditation. I hope every participant will join us in the afternoon. And thank you everyone for coming today. Thank you.